There's a gospel that's quietly powerful, one that's been hidden for a long time. It's so spiritually different that the most powerful Christian group in history worked hard to make sure most people never heard about it. This gospel wasn't burned or publicly attacked, but instead, it was pushed aside, ignored, and only spoken of quietly in old monasteries and meetings. It's called the Gospel of Mary. This isn't Mary, the mother of Jesus. It's Mary Magdalene. The church once called her a sinner, but old writings show her as a spiritual leader, a deep thinker, and maybe even more than that. Why would the church fear just one gospel? What truth does it hold that could shake the main beliefs of Christianity? Is it just a different point of view? Or does it open a door to something deeper and more ancient? What if this gospel doesn't just question church power? What if it brings back the idea of the sacred feminine that was pushed aside for centuries? What if it doesn't ask us to follow outside rules, but instead shows a way to find truth inside ourselves? A way to wake up to who we really are, without needing a middleman. In this video, we'll go back through history to learn why this gospel was pushed into the dark, and what that silence tells us. We'll look at its symbols, study the deeper meanings inside its lines, and face the real reason religious leaders didn't want its ideas to spread. This isn't just a story about old scrolls or scholar talks. It's about power, mystery, and a forgotten woman who spoke a deep truth, that the divine lives inside us, not in buildings made by people. If you're ready to look past old rules and find a lost piece of your spiritual path, then come with me as we explore one of the most mysterious texts ever found. To see why the Gospel of Mary still matters and why it caused fear, we need to go back almost 2,000 years. This was a time before Christianity had power, when it was made up of small groups with many different teachings and people looking for spiritual truth in secret. The Gospel of Mary wasn't part of the Bible, and it wasn't meant to be. It's one of the Gnostic texts, secret writings from early Christians that show a very different view of Jesus and his message. These writings, hidden in Egypt's sands and forgotten for centuries, talk less about sin and guilt and more about self-understanding and waking up to the divine. Out of all these, the Gospel of Mary is special, not just for its message, but for who brings it. Found in pieces in a book called the Berlin Codex in 1896, it shows Mary Magdalene not just as someone who was there, but as a true teacher. She was close to Jesus and understood things that others didn't. Her gospel says we're not saved by following rules or doing church rituals. Instead, we're saved by deep inner knowing, a kind of understanding that comes from personal experience. She talks about the soul moving through layers of illusion, fighting against fear and ignorance, and finding peace in the end. But this kind of message was a big threat to the early church. As the church began to grow with help from the Roman Empire, it needed clear rules, order, and control. A gospel that said people could find spiritual freedom without priests or church rituals was a serious challenge. It wasn't just different, it was dangerous. Even more shocking was the idea that a woman held this deep wisdom. A woman having this kind of insight went against the male-dominated structure the church was building. The Gospel of Mary is based on Gnostic thinking, a belief system that's older than Christianity. Gnostics thought the material world was full of illusions and that the real truth was beyond it, in a hidden divine reality. They didn't see Jesus as just a savior, but as someone who came to help people remember where they really came from. In this view, Mary Magdalene wasn't just a follower, she really understood his message. So why was this gospel left out of church teachings and important church meetings? Because its message isn't just about personal growth. It also threatens how the church works. It replaces control with personal freedom, fear with insight, and male-led rules with feminine wisdom. To really understand the Gospel of Mary, we have to leave behind the usual religious ideas and explore a deeper, more personal path. This gospel isn't focused on history or rules, it's about the soul's journey. It starts where most religious books stop, on the inside. Jesus doesn't speak of laws or duties. He talks about what's real and what isn't. He tells his followers to look within, to see past the surface of things, and find the divine spark inside themselves. After he leaves, the disciples feel lost and afraid. But Mary stands up with calm and strength. She comforts them and shares what Jesus told her in private, lessons the others weren't ready to hear. She talks about the soul moving past 7 forces of darkness. These are not just sins, but lies and tricks that keep people from knowing their true selves. Things like ignorance, desire, anger, darkness, fake peace, judgment, and being controlled by the body. Mary explains that the soul has to face and rise above each of these forces to return to divine wholeness. This, she says, is true freedom, not from following rules, but from deep inner change. What makes this teaching so bold is how it views the world. It says heaven isn't a place you go to, it's a state of mind. It says God isn't far away, God is already inside us. And it says salvation doesn't come from outside, it comes from waking up within. Then the break happens. Peter and some of the other male disciples don't accept what Mary says. They question how Jesus could have shared such important truths with a woman. This is a key moment. It shows not just a fight between Mary and the men, but a bigger divide, between personal spiritual knowledge and strict church control. Peter stands for rules, systems, and power. Mary stands for deep understanding, inner wisdom, and spiritual freedom. This wasn't just a simple argument between followers. It marked a turning point in spiritual history. In time, Peter's path won, the path that led to rules, church meetings, and grand buildings. Mary's way was pushed aside, first in ideas, then even in physical writings. Her gospel was lost for almost 2,000 years. People no longer saw her as wise but as sinful. The voice of feminine wisdom was pushed down, but it was never fully erased. Now, as more people search for personal spiritual experiences, the Gospel of Mary returns. Not just as an old book, but as a reflection. A reflection showing us our own forgotten connection to the divine. It pushes us to ask not only what we believe, but why we believe it. Were the keys to heaven ever meant to be held by churches, or have they been inside us all along? To see why the Vatican is wary of the Gospel of Mary, we must look deeper, not just at church debates, but at how power is built and kept, both spiritually and in society. The Gospel of Mary isn't just offering different ideas. It tears down the structure that church authority was built on. In her story, salvation doesn't come through priests, rituals, or church ranks. It comes through knowing yourself, through personal growth and awareness. There's no talk of original sin, and no need for someone else to suffer for your mistakes. The soul, in Mary's view, was never truly cut off from the divine. It just forgot where it came from. That's a huge break from church teaching. If the soul is already divine and just needs to remember, then what happens to the whole system of confession, tradition, and control? If Mary is right, then spiritual power isn't in Rome, in robes, or in rituals. It's in you. That idea doesn't just question beliefs, it questions control. And it doesn't stop there. Her gospel brings back something even older than the church, the sacred feminine. The early church, shaped by Roman male rule, kept women on the outside. They could help, but not lead. But here's Mary, not as a sinner, but as someone sharing truth. She's the one Jesus trusted with his deeper teachings. She's the one who stays calm and strong when the others are scared. The Gospel of Mary doesn't just honor a woman, it brings balance back to the spiritual story. It reminds us that the feminine has a place in the sacred, right beside the masculine. It speaks of listening to your inner voice, being open, and trusting your heart as paths to real wisdom. It suggests that the masculine and feminine were always meant to work together, not one ruling the other, but both lighting the way. That may be the most powerful idea of all. The Gospel of Mary gives back the missing half of the soul. And history shows what happens to powerful ideas. By the 2nd century, Gnostic texts were called false teachings. By the 4th century, when Emperor Constantine joined with the Church, the system became more political and strict. Church leaders met, picked their books, and pushed others, like Mary's Gospel, out of sight. But why all the fear? Because those who control the story, control the soul. The Gospel of Mary doesn't just question one idea, it questions the whole system. It invites people to wake up instead of follow blindly, to look within instead of always looking outside. It says heaven isn't far away or something to earn. It's a way of seeing, right now. And maybe that's the real reason the Church fears this gospel. Not because it's wrong, but because it gives people the power to be free. Now that we've uncovered the truth about the Gospel of Mary, the next question is, how can you live out what was once hidden? This isn't about rebelling just to rebel. This is about finding the sacred place inside yourself again. The Gospel of Mary isn't just a book, it's a guide, showing you how to return to your natural wholeness, where fear fades and your inner wisdom leads the way. To begin living this message, start with quiet. Not just silence around you, but a calm space inside where your true voice can be heard. Mary's teaching says real knowledge doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. Each morning, spend 5 minutes in stillness. Let your thoughts come and go like passing clouds. Don't follow them. Just listen to the quiet in between. That's where your inner knowing begins to rise. Next, question the guilt you were taught to carry. Mary says the soul was never stained by original sin. It is eternal, full of light, and always connected to the divine. Think about how shame may have shaped your life, your choices, your beliefs, your relationships. Start to let go of those patterns by telling yourself each day, I am not broken. I am becoming. Then, try sacred journaling. Not as a task, but as a way to talk with your inner self. Ask simple but deep questions like, what am I truly afraid of? Or, what truth have I been ignoring? Or, what would life look like if I lived from my soul instead of my pain? Don't worry about perfect answers, just be honest. Also, connect with the sacred feminine in you, no matter your gender. This isn't about being feminine in a social sense. It's about reconnecting with the part of you that is intuitive, open, caring, and creative. That could mean walking barefoot outside, making something with your hands, paying attention to your dreams, or trusting your own pace instead of outside pressure. The Gospel of Mary is about balance, not control. And finally, live your truth, quietly but fully. You don't have to argue, prove anything, or change others. Just live with courage and kindness. The Gospel of Mary calls you to become the message, to live it. When you walk in truth and love, you become a light for others to remember their own truth. That's how change spreads, not through force, but through presence. Always remember this, no system can block the light of the soul once it knows who it really is. Mary's words were hidden not because they were weak, but because they were powerful. Let them wake something ancient inside you, something brave and free. The way is open. The voice is calling again. Are you ready to hear it? In a world where tradition often replaces truth, and repetition covers up real insight, the Gospel of Mary is like a quiet voice with the power of thunder. What you just heard isn't just an old debate or a forgotten book. It's a mirror asking a timeless question: who holds the key to your spiritual freedom? You, or the system that tells you what to believe? Mary's message tears down the fear that says you're not enough. It shows you that you've never been separated from the divine, you only forgot. The answers you've been looking for aren't locked in old buildings or secret rooms, they've been inside your soul the whole time. So maybe the real fear isn't just Mary's voice, but the deeper truth behind it, that true spirituality doesn't need control. It only needs you. Now the truth is in your hands. You've heard Mary's voice. Not the version shaped by dogma, but the real teacher of inner wisdom. The question now is, what will you do with it? Will this just be another video? Or will it plant a seed in you, a seed of self-awareness, strength, and spiritual freedom? The time for quiet knowing is over. The time to bring back what was buried is here. Let this be your call to explore, to ask deeper questions, and to remember who you are. The Gospel of Mary was never truly lost. It was waiting for you. If this message speaks to you, don't let it fade. Subscribe for more journeys into hidden truth and ancient wisdom. Leave a comment. What did Mary's words awaken in you? Share this with someone you think is ready to hear what was once silenced. The light is coming back. The veil is lifting. The forgotten gospel has found its voice again.